Good evening, everyone. Thank you for logging on for Education Watch Oklahoma. This is our third episode, and initially we started this show to talk about some policy and school finance topics. But tonight we have a new topic. We're going to be speaking with the Mayfield Independent School District Administration and administration for more public schools. If you've been watching the news, Mayfield, Kentucky has experienced devastating losses over the weekend. A tornado, now being called the Quad State tornado, swept through the region, devastated the town of Mayfield and many smaller communities in this area, and has now all told killed 88 people in, I believe, 6 states. Is the current statistic. So more public schools is no stranger to having to overcome disaster within the schools. And Superintendent Robert Romines, I had a good conversation with him today. We're going to bring him in now, and Kelly Stinson with Mayfield Public Schools. And Dr. Romines, I'm so excited for you to speak with Kelly because her district, her community, her family is walking through just one of the worst possible experiences. And Kelly, first, thank you both for being here. I appreciate it so much. I think this is a very critical conversation. And Kelly, let's start with you. How is your school? How are your kids? How are you?
We are actually doing very well. Our community has come together and working wonderfully together. We're checking on our students continuously. We have spoken with most all of them, and the ones we haven't, we are continuing to make home visits and things like that, locating them, making sure they are okay, meeting their immediate needs as well as working on their long-term needs.
Okay. And just for context, just describe your school for us. How many, or describe your district, how many schools, students?
We run just a little over 1,800 for our district. We have 3 schools, an elementary school that is preschool through 4th grade, a middle school that is grades 5 through 8, and then our high school is 9 through 12.
Okay. And right now, I understand some of your schools are being used as distribution centers for supplies.
Currently, our high school is being used as distribution center. In the beginning, it was used to shuttle victims of the tornado who had immediately lost their home. And so we were busing them in so they would have immediate shelter. Anyone needing a medical assistance, they were then shuttled from our high school to the local hospitals. And quickly, then we became a distribution center once those immediate needs were met, and plan to do that as long as needed.
Okay. All right, Kelly, thank you. And Dr. Romines, when I reached out to you today, to maybe talk about this, your response was immediate. Like, let's get in touch. We have lessons to share. Maybe just reflect a little bit about your experiences in 2013. Just kind of remind everyone about the tornado that was so destructive in Moore that year.
Sure. Very similar circumstance. Obviously, it was not as long as the one that Kelly and her communities are dealing with. Ours was towards the end of a school year. It was obviously in the spring. And unfortunately, school was in session. And so we had very little time to prepare for the track of that tornado. Ended up hitting 2 of our elementary schools, complete loss. Our second elementary school at Placid Towers, we lost 7 students on that afternoon, and then continued the track forward through our community, hitting one of our junior highs, our technology center, and our administrative offices. And then right after it got through our school district, the tornado lifted. And so just from what Kelly's talked about, sounds like to me they are well on their way in regards to taking care of their community of students and staff. One of the things that we were immediate on was getting in contact with our families and our students. And, in a school district this size, we had potentially a teacher working on the west side of the district whose building was hit on the most eastern side of our school district. All power was lost. There was no communication. And so it was a very, very difficult 6 to 12 hours, making sure that we could get our students back to their families and making those contacts and those points. But I'm very proud of what, Kelly just briefly has explained on what they are doing. It is clear that they are about their community and their students. They've got a long road ahead of them, but it sounds like to me that they're well on their way.
Thank you, Dr. Romines. So, you kind of mentioned a little bit some of the challenges that they might be facing. And Kelly, like you said, you don't know what you don't know yet in this situation. It's so extreme. This is a historic tornado in and of itself, and facing this type of displacement among your student body, the handling all of the emotional trauma that will come for everybody who's so affected. I mean, this is a long road. Dr. Romines, maybe talk a little bit about, what types of lessons you have to share about some of the nuts and bolts of walking through the situation.
Well, one of the things that we were really focused on once we made those connections, got in touch with our families, we had a great working group of administrators that made contact very similar to what Kelly and her team have done there. We were really hyper-focused on not ending the year. We wanted our kids to have some closure. Again, that storm came through. We had a week left of school, and it was really, really important for us, especially the sites that were completely devastated. We wanted those kids to be able to come back, gather their belongings, their backpacks, and those types of things. And so we moved mountains to make sure that they could do that, so that their summer could start with some closure. And, Kelly's going to be faced with the very same thing. They're fixing to, I would assume, go into a break for the holiday season. And so one of the things that I would suggest, if at all possible, get your students back in the buildings one last time, whether it be for an hour, 2 hours. That was very important and vital to our community and looking back. And one of the other things that I would suggest is getting your staff together. We were fortunate. We have over 2,700 staff members certified in support, bringing them all together. And we used one of our local churches that was able to house all of us. It was so very important for me and the leadership team to see our faculty's faces and for them to see ours. It was an emotional time. However, it was very, very important to share our message and talk about the things that we had learned. And we had to hit some of the difficult conversations head on. When you start talking about student loss and those types of things, it's important to remember and recognize that. And so we were able to do that. And then we were also able to lay out our plan. And of course, we had a summer to get back into the swing of things for the upcoming school year. But it was important for our staff to know that we had this and that we had a working plan. And there's no doubt in my mind, just hearing Kelly talk briefly at the very beginning, they've already started those plans, but it's instrumental to be able to do that. One of the things that we determined real quick over the summer, we had a group from Joplin that drove in, and they walked us through the fire step by step on things we did not know, and we didn't have a clue on what we were faced with. But one of the things was obviously getting around and planning. One of the big things that they had suggested was the mental and emotional health of our students, and not just the students, but also the staff. Kelly and I had an opportunity to talk before this all started, and they're going to hit some brick walls very soon. They're moving on adrenaline, and they need to take care of themselves. They can't take care of themselves. Their community can't. They need them in those positions to do what they need to do. One of the things that we decided early on that next school year was academics is what we do. Very, very important. But we were about providing mental and emotional supports for not only our students and our staff, but our community, from parents and grandparents. Kelly and her communities have sustained substantial loss. And it's going to take time to heal and get to where they need to be. But my suggestion would be this second semester is all about the mental and the emotional health of your community, and that includes Kelly and her superintendent and all of the other individual educators across that state in what they're dealing with, because it will hit them, and they need to be prepared for that, and they need to be able to take care of themselves as well as their community.
Kelly, what's your response to that? What's on your mind?
That is definitely our priority. That from the very beginning is exactly what we said we needed to do. Our students over the last year and a half have obviously already been dealing with trauma and with another layer of ACEs with the whole COVID situation. And now this is just one more layer to all of that. And so we realize the importance of that. And that is definitely going to be our focus and our priority. And we already have those services in place at our distribution center at the high school for students and families that need that. Okay.
And, I guess, like Dr. Romines said, that more public schools had a little bit of time to kind of regroup. Has your school district set a timeline yet? I was in a couple schools today. There was no class, of course, but I guess kind of what's your timeline, and what are you considering as you kind of pick a day to go back to school?
Sure. Obviously, when we want to get back as soon as possible, but at this moment, we still do not have power or water. Water is a little spotty, so we do at times, but not all of the time. And so that with those limitations, we are definitely going to be out the rest of this week, because they do not foresee us getting that back the rest of this week. And then our Christmas break was actually supposed to start next Monday. And it would have been great if we could have had our kids back before the break started, so that we could get that closure as we spoke about. But unfortunately, due to no power and water, we're not going to be able to do that this week. They'll be on Christmas break for 2 weeks. We'll continue to evaluate the situation, and hopefully by the time Christmas break is over, hopefully we'll have power and water, and we'll be able to start back on our original start date right after Christmas as we had planned.
Kelly, I don't mean to interrupt, but do you all have a social media presence? Facebook, Twitter. I know you all have a website set up, and was looking at that today, and great idea in regards to posting on your website the needs.
Yes.
But what's your social media presence look like?
We do have, it's a Mayfield Independent Schools official page, and so we are posting on there as often as possible. But to be honest, in our community, the internet is still very spotty. So even though we're keeping that up to date, and that's about, it's one of our limited means of communications with everything that's going on. But for some families, with internet still being spotty or not at all, then they're not receiving all of those messages and all of those posts.
One of the things that we did early on was the layered communication piece, email, social media. We utilized marquees, and I don't know where you guys are on that as far as where to go get information. And obviously you guys are going to be a little bit more strapped than what we were. But the layered communication piece is huge in regards to making sure that you do your dead level best to getting the communication out to families. But the communication piece is vital and really important. Parents want to know what the long-term goal is and those types of things. So you guys keep up the good work on that.
Yes. I think that is key in all of this, like you said, is the communication as it is with everything, and just keeping everybody in the loop so that everybody can be on board to do their part.
Have you had any, I guess, is everybody at this point accounted for within your student body and your school community? Have you been able to make contact with everyone?
We have made contact with majority. I would not say all, but at this time, we're not aware of any fatalities within our student body or staff body. But we have, yes, been able to make communication with most, and continuing to do home visits and things like that to reach those that we haven't been able to contact via phone or email or text.
Okay. Well, that's, so grateful to hear that. I mean, to have your whole school's community spared in this size of disaster really is, that's very grateful to hear that.
Yes, we are very.
Couple of other things that we were faced with, obviously, with the homes and the significant damage that we faced. We had to start looking at our board policies and reviewing our transfer policies, attendance policies, and a lot of that we put on the back burner or suspended those policies because it was very, very important for us to allow students that had to relocate outside of the school district. If parents could get them back to our sites, we welcome them with open arms. And again, we had to suspend a few policies to make that happen. And so I don't know if what your policies look like in regards to out of district, and residency and those types of things. But that was another component that was pretty huge. We lost very few students to other neighboring districts because parents were adamant about getting their kids back at home to us. And so we did that for that entire school year because it took some time to rebuild. And so that's another thing that you all might want to consider. And then also when spring rolls around, you're going to be dealing with, from adults to students, when storms roll in, there's going to be some significant issues there. PTSD is a real thing, and I've experienced that firsthand with not only myself but staff and community here. So be prepared for that too, and walk your littles and your students through that piece. That's going to be huge for you guys.
Yes, I was having that same conversation today with a staff member as we drove around and made some home visits. I said the next storm cloud that rolls in when we're in school, we're going to see that. And we've got to be prepared on how to help with that.
You do.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Romines, it's been now, oh gosh, over almost 10 years.
9. Be 9.
There's been a lot of conversation about, how long is the infrastructure going to take to be rebuilt? How long will it take for business to come back and for people to rebuild homes and return to the community? It's a city of about 10,000 people, and it, from what we've been hearing here, reporting, people want to stay. You know what I mean? They're here because this is their home, and so there's this question of, when and how long this recovery takes and what it looks like. I mean, for more public schools, almost 10 years down the road, where do kind of the scars remain from that event?
To be quite honest with you, unfortunately, more public schools has been through the ringer in regards to tornadoes. The 2013 was not our first, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last. And so we have a lot of experience in dealing with storms and tragedy and those types of things. And just, again, briefly talking and hearing, Kelly at the very beginning, before we started, there's no doubt in my mind that her community spirit, or their community spirit, is alive and well. And you hit the nail on the head, Augusta. This is our home, and Kelly's dealing with the same thing. Those people that are dealing with loss from homes and family members and those types of things, this, again, that's their home. And it's very difficult to relocate. And so the building process was not an easy one. A rebuilding process was not easy. However, we did it. And as far as scars throughout our school district, where you might see neighborhoods that didn't rebuild, or business or schools, that is not the case here in Moore. We built back very quickly. And, but the emotional scars, those are a little bit more difficult to deal with because those don't typically go away. But hearing some of the individuals that have been interviewed in Kelly's community, there's no doubt about it that they had the spirit and to rebuild and do what they need to do there in their community. So unfortunately, again, we've had experience with tornadoes, and I don't know where Kelly and her community are in that regard, but I think, again, they're well on their way, and that spirit's alive and well there.
And Kelly, you've got a page up on your school website with a list of, asks, resources, directing resources. Well, Dr. Romines, you talked about this a little bit in terms of, coordinating, providing for some of those needs. Maybe Kelly, just talk to me right now about if people want to help out through the school district, which is a reliable way to community. How can they do that? And what does the school need right now? What do your families need?
So on our school website, you will find the tornado relief, and we keep that list up to date. We're changing it 5 to 10 times a day, depending on the needs. As we get low on things, we post it, and as we start getting too much of something else and running out of room for it, we take it off the list and add it back as needed. And honestly, you can tell people are evaluating that and trying to meet the exact needs that are on that list, because we'll post we need diaper size 5, and within 30 minutes, we have more than enough diaper size 5, and that is wonderful that people are actually utilizing the resource that we're putting out there for that. Also on that website, you will find where financially you can donate, and it will go straight to our Mayfield City Schools students and their families. And we were fortunate that our buildings themselves weren't actually damaged, so it will be going straight to the students and their families, not per se to our school. And so there's also that way to give as well. I'm sure Dr. Romine can attest to this, that what we keep trying to emphasize are, yes, they have these immediate needs, but they're also going to be needs in the months to come. So that financial aspect will help us continue to meet those needs in the months to come, as businesses are trying to rebuild and people are without a job. They're going to need assistance with bills and assistance with food and shelter then, just like they do now as well. And so it is wonderful for anybody that can donate financially as well, other than just the immediate needs and supplies that we need right now.
And we'll be sure to, go ahead, Dr.
I'm sorry, Kelly, we did the very same thing. One of the things that we did early on is we set up a volunteer donation hotline, and we had staff members that came in and they were taking calls and answering questions and those types of things. You might not be set to do that at this point with electricity and phone and those types of things. I would say to communities who are watching this, and Kelly, don't be afraid to voice, the gift cards from communities, cash, those types of things. And I think it's great that you all have already set up an account with the school district. That money is easily traceable on how you spend and how you dole that out. And 2 years after this event, that will be important. If anybody ever comes back and says, how was my money spent? You've got a way to track that. One of the things that we were so very grateful of, when people started taking care of us financially, donations as far as gift cards and cash and those types of things with no strings attached, which gives you all the ability to go out and just what you said, take care of your families who are going to be in need. And right now, there's no doubt in my mind that there are many, many supports that are in your neighborhoods, and they are taking care of your community. But at some point in time, those supports will go back to where they came from. And so the donations and that type of thing, again, people are watching this and they want to do something. If they've got something set up for cash donations and that type of thing, that will go a long way. One of the things that we were dealing with is we lost again 2 schools. One was hit in a major way. And so we were about rebuilding our schools and buying library books and textbooks and trying to take care of the community at the same time. So I think it's great that you guys are set as far as your buildings and taking care of your community. That's the goal. And sounds like to me, you guys are well on your way on that in that regard too.
Okay, well, I was just going to say we'll definitely post links so that community members in Oklahoma or wherever they might be watching who want to contribute to Mayfield Schools families. We'll definitely make sure that it's clear the way to do that on our end. And with both of you here, I think it's so wonderful that you're in touch, Kelly. I think this is the last thing that you want to have in common with someone. But I'm grateful that there are other groups reaching out so that, your school and yourself, you're not alone as you go through this. Dr. Romines, any final thoughts for her? And then, I'm glad you guys are going to be in touch, but any final thoughts and reflections for the community on what this means for the schools?
Just again, Augusta, if you would share my contact information with Kelly, we are here. We are a phone call away. We're a Zoom call away. And again, we're more than happy and willing to get in the vehicle and come to you guys. Again, don't want to sugarcoat things. You all have a long road ahead of you, but please know you have supports just right in your backyard. We've been through it, and we're ready to stand up and do whatever we can to help you guys.
Thank you, and looking forward to working with you.
All right. Thank you both so much. Just thank you both so much. And I hope you both have a great rest of your evening. Of course, Kelly, you can reach out to me, Dr. Romines, of course, and I'll make sure you guys are in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. A critical conversation. We didn't even get into another element of it, but it's going to take some time to make sure that those kids are also on track just in terms of their academics. And when you're looking at the emotional toll that's been taken, and I've actually got my colleague here with me, Hunter McKee. We're both here in Mayfield for News 9 and News on 6. And we are, we arrived on Sunday night. We got to Sunday night we got to Mayfield on Sunday night. We drove through Arkansas. We went through Monette. We looked at some of the damage there, and then came into Mayfield. So, Hunter's from Norman. Hunter's from Norman and has a current memory of the events that happened there. You saw that damage, Hunter, and now we just have been looking at each other throughout the day as we're driving around Mayfield, and it's like nothing you've ever seen. The aerial footage is dramatic. The rubble everywhere is dramatic, and being there, I just checked in with him and I was like, "Are you disturbed?" I'm disturbed. It's just complete devastation in different parts of Mayfield. So, Hunter, talk to me about just kind of share your reflections on this. I mean, you've seen a community go through it just next to where you grew up.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. And just driving through and just seeing, we had mentioned on air during our stories so many times, you're just seeing, home after home, business after business, just completely destroyed, people standing around picking up the pieces that are left. And yeah, unfortunately, as somebody who grew up back in Oklahoma, the OKC area in Norman, we saw Southside OKC and more get hit like they had talked about before. Devastating tornado that hit in May of '99 and May of 2013. And the 2013 one, I remember it very, very vividly. I was just done with my freshman year in college. My folks actually live on the north side of Norman, on the Norman and Moore border. And we were in their backyard, and we actually saw the tornado form. It formed near Tuttle. I believe it was the Tuttle Newcastle area. And because there's just so much land out there that we saw it just grow and grow and grow. And as it got closer, we were thinking, oh my gosh, it's coming right towards Moore once again. And, I just think that the scariest part is we knew that we were safe, but it was close enough to where, and I told Augusta this on the drive up here, is you can hear it. And the sound of a tornado that large is just so frightening. And because of all the pieces it picks up, it gets so dark. It sounds like a freight train as it's going by. So when we were driving through, Mayfield, I kept kind of thinking back to, obviously we saw the aftermath of it, but I just couldn't imagine what it was like being in town and knowing that storm was coming right towards you. And like we've said before, these storms, they hit so fast. I mean, we kept hearing that when me and Augusta were talking to people, getting different sound bites. Everyone's like, it just came so fast. It just came so fast. And so everybody likes to be as prepared as possible, but sometimes you're in a spot where you just can't get out in time. And so this large, tornado's barreling towards your town, and you try to do whatever it takes to find safety. And remember too, in Oklahoma, thing about Kentucky is some of these areas like this, they don't have as many storm safety areas, cellars, as people in Oklahoma do, because they put such an emphasis, because Oklahoma's been hit so much. Mayfield has never seen the storm quite like this, as we have heard from so many people. And so it was just like, I remember Augusta had talked to a woman whose family member was home, and they went inside of a closet. I talked to a woman who kind of got in a cellar that they've never used as a storm shelter before, so they weren't sure how that was going to go. They actually used rope to tie themselves to a kind of a bar in their cellar, just in case. I can't even imagine. Just in case they got pulled out. So it's sad, and it's a good thing that we talked to both the Moore school district that went through this, and then here in Mayfield too, just because you just feel for these kids, and not just the kids that were in it, but the kids that they come home, and the school that they knew and the house that they grew up in, all of a sudden it's just gone. And so it's something that you grow up with for the rest of your life. And I know that even though I was not in the middle of Moore when that tornado hits, it's and obviously I wasn't working in news at the time. I was too young, but I remember watching a lot of News 9's coverage of that, and they were all over it. And I just remember the next day kind of driving through and thinking, man, that was a restaurant that me and my parents went to all the time, gone. There was a movie theater there in Moore called the Warren that I'm sure a lot of people in Oklahoma have gone to. There were people at the movies that day, and it came right through, and the parking lot, you couldn't even recognize it. So it's the kind of same things that me and Augusta have seen in Mayfield today. And obviously Augusta and I, it's our first time to visit the town, but we were talking to just so many people who were like, you just can't even imagine how much this place has been just damaged. And,
what it's been through in the past 5 days. I just can't. It's sort of picturing the kids. I think that the mother we spoke to today, it was so moving. It's like the people afraid for their kids is somehow like unique. It was so moving. And we were at a school today. We're at Central Elementary School, where the structure is still there. So now it's a great distribution center, and the school, of course, is connected all throughout the community. They're in touch with all sorts of families, and a great way to distribute disaster relief. And I was seeing kids rolling, these carts of water, loading them into a car to go provide disaster relief, and they should be in class. How those kids were young, what I mean? It just, and there's all these volunteers at the school, lots of families, lots of kids, and I can just only imagine what a formative experience this will be for them. And this school district, it was really cool to hear from Kelly. They're on the ball, it sounds like, and thinking a few steps ahead about the emotional needs of their families. But this will be a mountain for them to climb. So we're also super grateful for Dr. Romines from Moore Public Schools coming on. When I talked to him today, he was like, please get me in touch. Like, we've been through this, and we really want to help. So and to Kelly Stinson, we just wish all the best, and we'll be linking resources for people who, if you want to donate, contribute to the fund that the school has set up, or contribute in another way, we'll make sure that it's very clear on how you can do that. So any final thoughts, Hunter?
I just think that that this is an experience that you and I will never forget. And we've been touched by so many people in ways that just to see. And Augusta's mentioned it in the show, but just the amount of people that have really come together and stepped up, and it happened back in Oklahoma, like we talked about. There were shirts, called, More Strong. And, as the pastor had mentioned in our story tonight, Kentucky Strong. And people have just really, really come together and doing the best they can. And Augusta had mentioned it. We're looking forward to how much the community in town can build themselves back up from this, and how much they can step up and step forward. Yeah,
we're kind of talking like, I guess I want to see in 6 months. There's just been this incredible resilient spirit, which we've kind of talked to some disaster relief people who are like, this is the adrenaline. This is that initial, kind of survival response to something like this. And that does wear off. And like Dr. Romines was telling Kelly, like, your families, your kids, and you are going to hit a wall, and then it's going to get hard emotionally. And you got to be ready for that, and you got to take care of yourself. And so I just, we'll be checking in on Mayfield for sure. So for everybody watching, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And this was kind of a special program. We were, kind of a sidebar from our usual policy and financial discussions about public schools, school districts in Oklahoma. So thank you all for tuning in, and look for a link to those resources if you're interested in contributing. And so, thank you so much for joining us. This is Augusta McDonnell and Hunter McKee on Education Watch Oklahoma.